Hey everyone, I'm Michelle with Designs by JuJu, and in today's video, we are going to be making the brand new In the Hoop Holly Wreath. This project comes in 4 sizes and can be used for so much more beyond a wreath. I will be showing you how easy it is to stitch a freestanding applique holly and the fun ways you can incorporate these hollies into your home decor and projects. Let's get stitching. For the In the Hoop Christmas Holly Wreath project, you will need the following supplies. As you can see, I used a variety of materials throughout this project, including some really fun, sparkly apparel fabric, a variety of colors of felt, red, multiple shades of green, and I even applied some sparkly heat transfer vinyl to my felt for a unique and fun effect. Here at Designs by JuJu, we like the Caesar brand vinyl. I also used some cotton fabric, the Cotton Shades line from Riley Blake, and I also incorporated some fun embroidery vinyl. Now, embroidery vinyl is different than heat transfer vinyl. You can purchase it from a variety of online retailers. Make sure that you do your research on embroidery vinyl. Like I said, it is different from heat transfer vinyl. You want to make sure that for this project, you are using an embroidery vinyl that can withstand the multiple satin stitches that are throughout this project. You could also incorporate other materials such as flannel, fleece, or minky. So need batting, no-show wash-away mesh stabilizer. You want to make sure that you are using a wash-away mesh stabilizer so that it'll wash away cleanly from your project. Scissors. Again, I always use a variety of scissors throughout my project, including some nice fine tip scissors and some applique scissors for trimming my applique fabric. And lastly, you will need a variety of shades of red and green embroidery thread. I prefer to use Floriani for all of my embroidery projects. Make sure to check the description box below for a link to our Amazon storefront that includes many of our favorite supplies used in this tutorial. All right, we are over at the embroidery machine, and I already have my 6x10 holly leaf loaded onto my machine. I also have 2 layers of no-show wash-away mesh stabilizer. You want to use 2 layers of stabilizer for this project because there are some pretty dense stitches, and as you start to stitch, if you use 1 layer of stabilizer, it can actually tear through that single layer and you can have some issues. It can come unhooped, the stitches can distort. So we recommend using 2 layers of no-show wash away mesh stabilizer. All right, so like I said, I'm going to be stitching the 6x10 design here on my brother's Stellar machine. So I'm going to go ahead and run the first stitch. So there's the first stitch, which is going to be the placement line for my batting. So I'm going to place my batting directly over the placement line, making sure that all of those stitches are covered. I'm going to smooth it out, and now I'm going to run the tack down line to secure that batting in place. Next, I'm going to remove my hoop from my machine, and I'm going to trim all the way around this excess batting, making sure not to trim any of the stitches. I'm going to use my curved tip applique scissors because those allow me to get right along the edge, while like I said, making sure not to trim any of those stitches. So the next stitch is going to be the placement lines for our first bit of holly leaves. All right, so as you can see, we have our first placement lines for our first set of leaves. So I am going to position my first applique fabric directly on top of those holly leaves. I'm going to be using a variety of fabrics. So this is some really fun apparel fabric that I had in my stash. I did go ahead and apply some SF101 just to help, since it has a little bit of stretch, and that will just help support that fabric so it's not so wiggly. And when we talked about supplies earlier, I discussed a variety of fabric choices you can use and how you can actually mix and match those fabrics to make these holly leaves have a lot of texture, a lot of fun in your project. So for this one, I am actually going to be mixing some material. So I have my first green fabric placed on top of those placement lines, and I'm ready to stitch the tack down stitches to secure that fabric in place. Perfect. So now I'm ready to, again, trim away that excess applique fabric right along those tack down stitches. They're kind of hard to see here on camera. I'm just going to trim right along those stitches, making sure not to cut any of the actual stitches. I have my first set of holly leaves complete. All right, so I'm going to put this back onto my machine. And I am going to repeat the exact same steps that I just did. I'm going to run the placement lines for my next set of holly leaves. I'm going to position my fabric on top, run the tack down, and trim. And I'm going to do that for the second set of holly leaves, the second color, as well as the holly berries in the middle. And then we'll check back in and see what that looks like. All of the applique work is complete. So I have my 2 sets of holly leaves with my fabric, and then I have my holly berries in the middle. And as you can see, I mixed and matched that apparel fabric with some felt. All right, so now we are ready to add our backing to our holly leaf. So I've already flipped my hoop over. This is the back side of my hoop. And I am going to position some felt over the entire image, making sure that all of my stitches are completely covered. You can use any fabric that you would like on the back of your holly leaf. I'm just using some felt because it is green and it'll match. So even if it is seen from behind, it won't matter. If your project is not going to be seen from behind, if you're just going to have it laying on a table or hanging, you could even just use some white cotton or something that you have a like an excess amount of, just so you don't waste a lot of fabric doing this step. So I am just securing this felt using a little paper medical tape. That way, if my machine happens to stitch over it, it's not going to gunk up my needle. Once that backing fabric is completely secured to the back of your hoop using your paper medical tape, you're going to want to position your hoop back onto your machine, and we're going to run the tack down stitch that is going to secure that backing in place. Now, this is very important that you have that backing fabric secured, because if a corner comes loose, it can actually tuck up underneath of your tack down stitches, and it can cause a whole lot of problems, and you have to tear out the stitches and restitch. So just make sure you have that backing fabric completely secured onto your hoop. That way it's not moving around during stitches. All right, so I'm going to run those tack down stitches, and then we'll move on to the next step. Those stitches are complete, so I'm going to remove my hoop from my machine, flip it over to the back side, and I'm going to trim right along those tack down lines to remove the excess backing fabric. Make sure you remove this excess backing fabric before you start running your satin and decorative stitches. Okay, so I've just trimmed away the excess backing fabric, so now I'm ready to load my hoop back onto my machine, and I'm ready to start stitching the decorative and the satin stitches. If you would like your bobbin thread to match on the back, if you think that your project will be seen from the back, you can actually change your bobbin thread to a color that coordinates. So this one I did use green bobbin thread. It's not necessary, but if you like to have your project matched what is on the front, you can see what that looks like. I'm just going to be using white bobbin thread, a typical white bobbin, because my project will just be laying on a table, or I'll have it as a decor piece. So I don't really care if the bobbin thread is white and doesn't match the front. If you have chosen a fabric like a fleece that has a higher nap, you will want to apply a piece of water-soluble topper. You'll just position that right on top of your entire holly leaf so that the stitches do not distort from that fabric. The felt that I used for this project does not have a high enough nap that I need to position any water-soluble topper on top of that. All right, I'm going to stitch this project and then we'll check back in once all of the satin and decorative stitches are complete. My 6x10 holly leaf has finished stitching. So now I'm going to remove my hoop from my machine, and using some sharp scissors, I'm going to trim away the excess stabilizer, and then we'll be back to finish this project. So I've just trimmed away all of my excess stabilizer around my holly leaf, and now I'm ready to remove these remaining bits. So you have a couple options for how you can do that. You could either use a Q-tip saturated with water and just work your way around the edges, or we had a customer recommend using like a little water pen. This came in actually one of my daughter's little play kits, and you just rub it around the edges also. So I'm going to work my way around the entire holly leaf, removing this excess stabilizer. And there it is. I have all of my excess wash away stabilizer removed from the edges of my holly leaf, and now it is complete. And you can kind of fold these seams in to kind of make it a little bit three-dimensional if you want, depending on the project you're wanting to do. Here in a little bit, I'm going to show you a variety of projects that can be made using this holly leaf. And I also wanted to give you a little bit of a pro tip here. So if you have a machine with a larger hoop capability and a color sort feature, you can actually put multiple holly leaves together in one hooping. And when you color sort, I'll pop up an image of what that looks like on my brother Stellaire. But when you use the color sort feature, it will stitch all of the same steps at once. So this is an 8x8 hoop that I used, and I did the 4-inch, the 4x4 holly leaf for that, and I was able to fit 4 holly leaves in one 8x8 hooping. And that can really save you a lot of time with your cutting and your stitching because it does it all at the same time. So you don't have to do 4 individual hoopings. If you don't have an embroidery machine with the color sort feature, but you do have Embrilliance embroidery software, you can also do the color sort feature using your software. Just make sure to run the stitch simulator to make sure that it didn't group too many of the colors together. So that's just another option. It really has saved a lot of time. I've been able to knock out a whole lot of these holly leaves pretty quickly for the wreath that I'm going to be making. So we'll check back in with a bunch of fun ideas for how you can use these holly leaves. But as you can see, they are super easy to stitch and they are so pretty. We just completed stitching a holly leaf for the In the Hoop holly leaf project. Make sure to reference your PDF included with your purchase, as well as the blog post that is linked below for tips and tricks, as well as the steps to make your own In the Hoop holly wreath project. Some additional projects that could be created using these freestanding holly leaf applique pieces include a table runner. In this example, I stitched 5 8x8 hollies to create a beautiful centerpiece for my table. You could also use these holly leaves as an add-on piece for your In the Hoop home wall hanging. I have a 5x7 In the Hoop home wall hanging pictured here with a 5-inch holly leaf. You could also use it as an embellishment for a gift package, a garland, and of course, the wreath. I hope you have enjoyed today's tutorial. And if you like these freestanding applique projects, stay tuned in the coming months. Make sure to subscribe and don't forget to check the description box below for helpful links. Also, check out the Designs by JuJu Blessings Facebook group linked below for more helpful tips, tricks, and inspiration. We hope to see you soon. Happy stitching!